The GameCube. It's fucking purple. Now, I've heard people call it the purple lunchbox, but I don't know, man. I just don't see it. Fending off hordes of nerds at the local Walmart using only a bar of soap, my mom secured a GameCube for my brother and I during Christmas of 2001. I desperately wanted Luigi's Mansion, but my mom, upon seeing footage for the game, thought it was too scary and evil for my younger brother and I to play. Instead, we got the beloved classic, Tarzan Untamed. We also didn't know what a memory card was, or that it was sold separately, so we spent all of Christmas break playing through the first level of Tarzan, over and 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 over. Anyway, the GameCube controller, a goofy purple peripheral that looks like the face of a very silly bug. On release, the size of this controller was perfect for my 8-year-old baby hands. But now that I'm an adult with 30-year-old baby hands, I appreciate this thing even more. And yeah, I know the GameCube was a massive financial failure for Nintendo, but I think the console has an incredible controller design, and I will defend it to the ends of the earth. Though I don't know that it actually needs defending, considering that Nintendo has never stopped making the dang thing. It is still the controller of choice for many Smash Brothers sickos after all. Okay, so why do I love this controller so much? Do I just have an affinity for strange purple homunculi? Yeah. Though it's true that the controller's multicolored buttons with silly shapes do make it look childish, kinda like a Fisher-Price toy with glued-on pieces from perfection, I find that charming. Honestly, I think the overall design of the controller is just fun. I mean, just look at this fucking thing, man. It looks like someone slapped 2 eggplants onto a boomerang. Can the PS2 do this? No, fuck you. Plus, the various shapes of the buttons have a tangible purpose. A key feature of this controller that no other controller really has had before or since is that every button has a unique shape, including the analog stick and C-stick. No other controller except for this one. The controller additionally has concave, etched-in letters for each button. Okay, so beyond a funky aesthetic, what is the actual use case for these features? So imagine picking up a controller.
Fuck. 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 Fuck.
Okay, then imagine someone else pick up a controller.
Fuck. 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 Fuck.
Perfect.
Fuck.
So now that you've got a grip on the controller, you would like to press X. On a standard diamond face button configuration, X could be anywhere. Waiting. Watching.
Lurking.
However, you've got a GameCube controller nestled in your squishy, meaty noodles. Here, X has its own unique kidney bean shape and positioning on the controller, meaning you know exactly where it is without having to look down and hunt for it before it hunts you. The unique button shapes, as well as their unique positioning and colors, help the player form a combined visual, mental, and tactile association for each button, which allows the player to recall button placement much more quickly. The GameCube controller additionally features an updated analog stick that, in my opinion, feels much more solid, much comfier, and more responsive than the Nintendo 64 controller. The GameCube controller continued Nintendo's trend of giving the analog stick 8 sides with stick locking action. Maybe they no longer serve a present-day purpose, but I miss them, dang it. It was nice to know that the controller was pointed precisely in a specific direction. The near immaculate design of the controller was no accident either. Shigeru Miyamoto spent 3 years leading the development of the controller's design. This resulted in revision after revision, to the point that Satoru Iwata commented, "I'm frankly pretty surprised at the number of changes that we've made to this controller. I think that it really contains a lot of the DNA of Nintendo, if you will. And I think that Nintendo puts a lot more emphasis and uses the controller more than any of the other companies." Honestly, factoring in its friendliness and near wackiness in both shape and color, this really is the most Nintendo of Nintendo controllers. Maybe aside from the Wiimote. According to Miyamoto, He and his team strove to create a controller that was as approachable in its design as possible. He specifically wanted to create a controller that anyone could pick up and use. Your grandma, or even kids with small hands. The only two categories of human that exist. Following this theme of approachability, Miyamoto also wanted what he considered to be the primary, most important button of the controller to also be the most visually apparent. For SNES, it was the A button. For the GameCube, it's the green one. The main control between him and what permits him to interact, for example, with Mario. Perrin Kaplan, Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Nintendo, expanded on this theme of approachability and confirmed a key item I mentioned earlier during an interview with IGN. When asked about the controller's unusual face button layout, Kaplan explained, "Well, the whole idea was to be able to feel them, the kidney-shaped buttons, with your eyes closed, and have them more intuitive versus everything always being round." So behind the design of the GameCube controller was the drive to create as intuitive of a product as possible. And I think they largely succeeded. That is, except for a few key areas. My biggest criticism with the controller is the D-pad. It's tiny, mushy, and super easy to press the wrong direction or multiple directions at once. For a controller that supposedly had 3 years of development, the D-pad honestly feels like an afterthought. And lo and behold, it turns out that the GameCube controller D-pad was indeed added last minute during development. A few weeks prior to the first unveiling of the GameCube at the Space World 2000 convention, IGN had received word from their sources that the GameCube controller would not have a D-pad at all. In place of the D-pad is a red menu button, which looks very similar to the Nintendo 64's red start button. It seems as though Nintendo made a sudden decision to change the design to include a D-pad just before the GameCube made its initial showcase at Space World. So it's pretty clear, at least to some degree, that the inclusion of the D-pad was a rushed, half-baked addition. Moving on, the Z button's placement above the right trigger feels a little uneven or improperly yoked without an additional left Z button. Even at the time, the PS2 had both left and right bumper triggers, making its absence on the GameCube a little disappointing. I do like the Z button's little braille bump as it helps guide finger placement, which is especially helpful because the Z button is pretty shallow compared to the controller chassis and absolutely minuscule compared to the R button. So for me, the overall design of the Z button is a little disappointing, but not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. The C stick, on the other hand, it's just okay. Maybe a little too small for my massive girthy thumbs, but it was also made to accommodate child hands after all. Now, if you are an evil, ravenous child like I was, it is possible to tear away chunks of the C-stick's squishy membrane until it is just a plastic nub. I sort of wish they went with a more hardy material for the C-stick, but at the same time, if you actually take care of your controllers, like child me didn't, you likely won't run into that issue. So let's return to some more positives about the controller. I also love the unique analog L and R trigger buttons. If you aren't aware, the controller registers separate button responses for slightly pushing the triggers down and pushing them in all the way, which when pushing them in all the way includes a satisfying click. But what is the practicality of that, you ask? One of the most well-known use cases for the click-in analog triggers is FLUDD in Super Mario Sunshine. By pressing the triggers in a little bit, you can make FLUDD spray while Mario is running. However, by pushing in the trigger until it clicks, Mario will then stop wherever he is, allowing for more precise spraying. So, why hasn't Nintendo continued using analog triggers with new console and controller releases? In 2008, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft were in a legal battle against a company called Anescape Limited, who claimed that these companies' controllers infringed on a whopping 12 of Anescape's patents, which notably included patents for analog sticks and analog triggers. My understanding is that Microsoft and Sony settled before trial, while Nintendo went to trial over the infringement and lost. Eventually, in 2010, a Texas federal judge overturned the decision. However, in spite of this, my understanding is that Nintendo would very likely have to go through yet another legal battle with Anescape the moment they released a new controller with analog triggers. And unfortunately, even with the overturning in 2010, there is no guarantee that Nintendo will win this time. So, why is that? I don't want to get too far into the weeds of legal minutia here, but if Nintendo were to pursue another case against Anescape, there is a strong likelihood that their suit could be assigned another judge with a different interpretation of federal law, who therefore could make an entirely different ruling, and Nintendo very likely would not want to deal with the legal fees involved if there's a good chance they won't win. Which is ultimately why there's only digital triggers on the Wii U and Switch controllers. Now, please keep in mind that I am a silly, schlubby YouTube man and not a lawyer. This is only my best understanding of this legal situation, and there is a good chance that I have gotten a few details incorrect. If I did, I am sorry, I'm doing my best. The GameCube controller also has a wireless variant, the Wavebird. This is my absolute favorite version of the controller, even in spite of its lack of rumble. It connects to a rectangular receiver via IR and has 8 channels, meaning you can have up to 8 controllers in the same room without goofing up another controller's inputs. I also think this controller feels just a little bit comfier to hold, and I really like the weight that adding batteries gives to the overall feel of the controller. It is, however, a little easy to accidentally spin the frequency wheel and completely lose connection. But honestly, that's a bit of a nitpick. Not being tethered to your controller is a godsend. It's a shame that nobody ever expanded on that concept. So, bottom line, is this controller flawless in every conceivable way? No, of course not, you fucking sponge. But I have a huge affection for its shape, quirks, design philosophy, and how it attempted to innovate at the time of its release. And hopefully I've made a decent case for the features that I feel that the controller nails. However, if I didn't, what do you want from me? I'm a dumb fuck who has a framed poster of the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie hung up on my wall. Now, during a pre-release interview for the GameCube, Miyamoto demanded that everyone get accustomed to the GameCube controller because 10 years from now, this controller will be the standard. Well, Miyamoto, you did it. Thanks to you, every controller is GameCube. Every single one. All is GameCube. If you liked this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get updates on new video uploads the second they're released. I know it doesn't seem like much, but subscribing especially helps keep this channel going. And, if you feel so inclined, donating a super thanks, which you can find directly underneath this video, would also be extremely helpful. Additionally, I'd like to give a massive thank you to Shivering Pixel patrons, Mr. Badger, Scotty Scotties, and Chiante. You too can have your name read aloud on each and every new video, as well as see new videos 1 week ahead of time, plus receive exclusive and behind-the-scenes content by going to patreon.com/shiveringpixel. Please check it out.